Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Nobody podcast. Today, we have a special episode. This is the first episode in my long-standing podcast of 2 seasons where I actually have a person here in front of me in my basement, not my recording studio. It's a mini recording studio, but I have a really good friend of mine, Justin, today, who's going to talk a little bit about himself and introduce himself to all the nobodies out there. Justin, you want to start us off?
Yes, thank you again for having me here in your man cave down here in the basement where we've spent many evenings playing poker, among other things. So I appreciate you having me here. I'd much rather do this in person than online. So small intro, I'm 30 years old. I am right now running a business called L&M Washers. It's a coin and card operated laundry business. We specialize with apartment complexes. We work with management companies and landlords as far as doing commissions and servicing machines and all those kind of things. Contracts, try to get contracts with them, try to build relationships with them. I actually have some customers that we've had since my grandpa started. So it shows kind of how long we've been around. I think my grandpa started this company in the late 60s, mid 60s or late 60s. And the funny story is he started the company he was a service technician after he got out of the army. He was in the war in Korea and he, service tech for another company. And he realized, why am I working for somebody else when I could do this myself? And he started doing that while on the side, while he was working for this company. They found out and he was gone. But this was L&M, which L stands for Lou, my grandpa's name. M stands for Marge, which was his wife, my grandma. Mm-hmm. And then after about 25 years, my dad ended up stepping in, running the company. And then I up until from the mid 80s it was early to mid 80s up until 2017, which is when I stepped in to start running everything. And that's kind of how it's been. So I feel like I've been a part of it since I was a kid. So I remember moving machines around since I was like 13, 14 and driving around in the car with my dad, going to do collections since I was just a kid. So it feels like I've been a part of this for a very long time. But that's the business side of my background.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about other stuff in a moment. But I guess my question is, as a little boy, did you always know that you were going to do this growing up? Or, just being around your family and being exposed to it, you really found a passion? Or did they push this on you where you're like, we want you to inherit this business. Please take it over. We love you.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was probably neither of those. It was more, I had different experiences. I had different goals growing up. I want to be a professional athlete like every other kid. My biggest passion throughout my life was probably once I got into soccer very seriously, late high school and through college. I got to play college soccer for 4 years. 5 years I redshirted my first year. Oddly enough, I had a academic issue from high school. I was really bad at math.
So who is it?
I'm decent. I've gotten a lot better with division, multiplication, the simple things. But as far as whatever that fraction is, MC squared, I don't know the answer to that. So I did have an issue with that. So I had to redshirt my first year of college for that reason, which actually gave me the opportunity to stick around for one more year and get a master's in organizational leadership, kind of like an MBA. But that's kind of where I was. I was really into soccer. I never really had that aha moment in my career saying, oh, I want to be this or that. But I ended up working a sales job. Actually, at one of my dad's, I would say they're a competitor, but they're really not because we have a good relationship with this company. He said, if you're not sure about what you want to do, give this job a chance, see kind of where you want to be. So I sold laundry equipment for another company for about 8 months, and I actually did enjoy it. And I thought I did a decent enough job at that. But all in all, after you get your commissions and all these other things, you look and you're like, I can just do this myself. So kind of like my grandpa and probably my dad at some point realized, working for yourself is is the king. As much stress and how it's not an 8-hour work day.
Mhm.
Some days are short. Some days could be really short, but some days you're getting phone calls late at night and stuff you have to deal with. So, yeah, I don't know if that really gave your question the best answer, but I wouldn't say they pushed me into it. They always said, it's here if you want it. And I ended up deciding to do that. And, it's not like I'm crazy about it. I don't hate it at all, but I do like it. And I like the ability to work for yourself and just the fact that any given day, if I need to, I step in if there's an issue at home, or I don't have to call anybody and say, can I take off, which is a huge benefit, which a lot of people don't get to experience.
Yeah. So when you decide to take vacation, do you write yourself a letter asking for a vacation, or you kind of just take vacation?
Yeah, the latter.
Okay, I guess that's the nice part about working for yourself. So then, alternatively, what is the last season I did have someone else who was starting a company based on a drug, and obviously it's totally different than what you're doing because you actually have a company and established and things like that. He was starting a company and it's related to a product he discovered. So the question I would ask people about, starting companies and having their own business is, what is the cons for working for yourself? Because for me, if I wish I had my own company of any sort, honestly, but I always have this fallback that I have a manager that can take a brunt of some of the work, or, if I do take time off, they can cover for me. So what would you say are the cons?
And what you said is actually part of that, where you say you can kind of pass the buck. Not saying that you did something wrong, but when the excrement hits the fan, proverbially, you can pass that along to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you are, when you're the leader or the owner, in this case, of the company, you're the one who has to answer all the questions, and you can't really pass it along to anybody else. So when things go down, or there's an issue with machines, and you have managers yelling and screaming at you, you can't pass the buck.
Yeah.
And that's one of the cons of it. But it does help with the responsibility, helps you keep on top of things. And I do try to run the business in an honorable way. I try to keep things running as best as can, because a lot of these companies that turn to us because we're a very small company, and they may have had an experience with a different company that was bigger, and they would call, and the phone call would just get passed along and along. They'd be put on hold and things of that nature. Whereas with me, I try to get there ASAP, so.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. That's good customer service. I mean, I hate calling places and being on hold on a robot and saying representative, and they're like, sorry, I didn't understand you. And it's like, definitely annoying, and a great selling point for your company. So just to go back a little bit on some of the things you said before, soccer. You said you wanted to be a professional soccer player, because that was going to be one of my questions, knowing you, is why didn't you go through that, that route? Because I think you're pretty good. That's what I hear.
I wanted to, I don't know if it was just soccer, but just growing up, I wanted to be a professional athlete, no matter what the sport. Originally, hockey was number one. I loved playing hockey. There's pictures, I think, of my brother and me with pillows on our knees playing goalie inside the house. I'm nuts about sports, as you know.
Yeah.
It's and that's the one thing that I'll play any sport, anytime, anywhere. So hockey, growing up, I really got into baseball as I went through kind of like 3rd through 7th grade ish. I actually stopped playing soccer between 6th and 9th grade because I played football. So I played all 5 major sports at some point in my life. So it was always, it's a pipe dream to be a professional athlete. And some people get there. I was never going to, but it was something I wish I could have been, or I wish that had been, where I ended up. But I still am very passionate about sports, talking about sports, or still playing. I play on an over 30 men's league team, which is, it sounds funny, but it is very competitive. So it's fun, but it's very competitive, playing church softball. So trying to stay active. But yes, if I could relive my life, I guess, And if I could have been a professional athlete, that would have been a dream come true to play a sport and get paid to do that. I mean, how can you beat that?
Yeah, agreed. And knowing you, I know that in terms of your history, is that it's actually how you met your wife, correct? You want to tell the listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, so 2013, I was playing college soccer after it was my second year at the school at Nyack. But my first year playing, as I mentioned earlier, I redshirted my first year. So I was going through some personal trials, some temptations and different things. And I had great friends in college, and I still talk to them almost, every week. We have group chats and all that stuff. And I love, those friendships, and they're great. And they help keep me, on the steady path. Mm-hmm. But I definitely went through some personal trials, but I was also obsessed with soccer to the point that I started 4 out of the 20 games, but I was a walk-on, but I felt like that was not nearly enough. Mm-hmm. Not because I deserved it, but because I had to get better. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to play soccer in the summer as an opportunity to improve and to get more time on the field, and be more of an impact player for my college at Nyack. And I heard about from one of our assistant coaches this program called the Chicago Eagles, which is a soccer summer ministry team. So it's a team where you go 2 weeks to Brazil, play with people in Brazil, play very high level competition. I mean,
I think
Brazil is one of the greatest soccer countries in the world in human history. But you play there, play in Brazil, and fields. People complain about the fields here. There's no comparison. There's literally a horse, there, and all this stuff. But it was an amazing experience. But anyway, I decided to play on this team. My family supported it, and I was very grateful for that, and friends and everybody very excited for me to go. So it was 2 weeks in Brazil, and then 6 weeks in the Chicago area running camps for kids, and spreading the gospel through soccer, using soccer as a vessel, a way to spread the gospel to people who may not have heard. Sure. So we did that in Brazil, and this was right about the time, I was going through personal trials and tribulations. And about a week and a half into Brazil, we were playing futsal. I don't know if you've heard. The futsal is basically just soccer on a basketball court. So small sided, like three or four players per team, very quick game. So we were playing, and all these things were happening. People were committing their lives to Christ. Kids were, lives were being changed. And, I was a believer, but I wouldn't call myself a follower at the time. I wasn't, my life wasn't committed in the way, that it needed to be, to put it frankly. So one of those evenings, they asked, it was really directed at the people of Brazil, the citizens there. They asked if anyone wanted to come up and commit their life. And some people went up, and I just felt a call to go up, and I recommitted there in Brazil. Wow. So that was where I kind of recommitted my faith. And Bria was on this trip as well. But the boys and girls were really, this wasn't an opportunity to date. The reason why you were there was not to find somebody. It was to, work on your faith and play soccer and all those things. But by the last week or so, we started to connect different, playing soccer, juggling together, just having different conversations. And by the last couple of days, we decided we're going to try to keep in contact. After the summer ended in August, and we went back to our respective schools, although she took off from school, that fall, and I was back at Nyack, and we kept in contact for about 2 months. And then, we decided that she should come visit, come watch a game or two. She stayed with my parents while I was at school. And then, turned out we were a match, even though, it's 2 months or 2 plus 3 months, maybe 3 months of long distance. And, we ended up getting together then, and that was 10 years ago. So been together since October of 2013.
Wow. That's amazing. So Bria was not going to your school and just so happened to be going to that same program trip. And that's how you met.
Yeah. So she happened to go. I happened to go. And not really irony, but she was encouraged to go by one of her close friends, whose name was Sarah, and she was playing soccer, and they were great friends growing up. And then the irony is, the friend that encouraged her to go at my wedding and Bria's wedding ended up getting married to one of my best friends. So if Sarah had never pushed her to go, I would have never met her.
Wow.
And then they ended up getting to get very, full circle kind of thing. Yeah, how these things work.
That's amazing. That's a great story. You, at first it seemed like you owe them. Now they owe you, and like going back and forth because of that. That's good.
A lot of owing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that story. That's a very unique story and interesting to hear how that worked out, and how God put you both in the same path to meet each other there in Brazil, of all places. I mean, people have trouble finding their significant others in the same town or in the same, church even. And here you guys meeting in, I don't know how many, I'm 1,000 miles out. I'm not good with distance.
Yeah, get rid of your Tinder account, go to Brazil.
There you go. Just for the beach. I definitely would love to go to Brazil at some point, just for the beaches, obviously, but also just to watch sports, soccer in particular. Volleyball, they're very good at too. Obviously the whole place is beach. But anyway, so I wanted to quickly, before we transition, talk about the schooling itself. So you did a little bit in Nyack, correct? And then you did an MBA there?
Yeah, so I studied communications, which was basically, I was journalism. I did a little bit of school newspaper, writing sports articles, and then a friend of mine who passed away recently, he invited me to my freshman year to run a sports radio show called The Dog Pound, because every week we would put somebody in the dog pound who was one of those athletes who'd get in trouble or have a bad week on the court or on the field. But he ran the show and I was his sidekick. So that was my intro to sports radio and different things about that, with one of my close friends who passed away. So I did the sports radio show, did sports journalism, writing sports articles. That was kind of on the side with getting the degree and all that. And then organizational leadership was kind of similar to an MBA. I don't know if it's not exactly it. Obviously, it's a different title. But that was in 1 year with a thesis. Oh. And my thesis was on, it's pretty bad that I don't remember, but it was the connection between, I think, team success and cohesion. So the team togetherness, and if that affects, if your team has success. So I remember doing that. It was a lot of writing and a lot of research. And I understand some people go to school for a long period of time, but that was more than enough for me.
Did you, I always ask this type of follow-up question to people, is like, did you feel that all this prepared you to help, run your business that you're doing now? Or did you figure it out on your own as you ran the business?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. But all these experiences I've had in my life, I'm very thankful for, because they have given me the opportunity to try to find success in different avenues. But for me, honestly, it's a little repetitive, but just being on a team playing sports, that atmosphere, and my willingness to just improve, and being put on the bench certain times, being too small, too this or that. That's kind of my motivation. And I've always been motivated. I've always tried to work harder than myself from yesterday. Try to be better than yourself every day. So just sports in general, and then, all those different experiences in school as well, that I believe help going forward into what is now my career.
Those are great wise words, and probably going to put that into a quote for you to put on the website. So thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to transition a little bit here. And as you've been talking, I realize that, your faith has played a role in your life. And for certain people that, listen to this podcast also as well, and other guests that have been on here. So do you want to share a little bit about your journey to your faith and how it's affected you throughout your life, and and currently?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned earlier, that whole journey of getting back to faith, I was a believer since probably I was 6 years old. I remember asking the Lord into my heart when I was a 6-year-old. So, but you don't really know what's going on in the world. So everybody, goes through trials and tribulations, as I did as well. And I guess it wasn't that it was somebody else's faith. I always believed in what I believed. But as far as following, there was a lot of times I was very far from God. And until, that trip in 2013, I really never I didn't get back to following until then. And to say it's been a smooth ride since, that wouldn't be honest. So they've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations since then. But been able to, always go back to where it started, kind of back to the faith, and really have never wavered from my belief in what I know that Jesus is Lord.
Mm-hmm. And, personally, I met you through poker, but then we became friends because we just happened to be going to the same church, which we didn't know. Well, because you go to the old person service, which is at that time was 8 o'clock in the morning or something?
8:45.
Yeah, it was too early for us. And then I went to the normal service, which was 11:30, which was more reasonable. But then we hit it off because, our friendship and our wives and now our kids. But, how important has been the fellowship through church? And even I don't know what order of the episode is going to be. So this is either a spoiler or a post insight, is that I had Bob, who leads our poker group, which I tell people it's a men's Christian poker group because, one, we don't gamble and we also fellowship. So how important has been fellowship through our men's group and our poker group, and your own soccer groups and sports groups have been in your life?
I think it's extremely important because, and I can't speak for women, but for men, it's important to get together as men, and be able to talk about the intricacies of your life, what goes on behind closed doors a little bit, in a space where, nobody's going to pass along what's said there, and that there's a trust and a genuine understanding that we all have these different struggles. So having those groups is important. The soccer for me is just an avenue to go out and enjoy myself and be a kid again. Basically, I remember when a few weeks ago it was raining and I was running around diving, doing headers and things like I was doing when I was 7. So to kind of be, like that again is fun. But as far as the groups go, and the small group that we go to on Tuesday evenings and the Saturday night poker, those things are really essential because it gives us the opportunity to just be guys, not be inappropriate, but to be guys and kind of connect in a way that, you can't do with the opposite sex, to put it frankly.
Well, you can do certain things with the opposite sex, but not those kind of things. So can you give the listeners, because sometimes I have trouble convincing just other guys that these type of groups are actually fun, and it's weird that people don't do this, right, more often, especially I feel like as I got older, I've been doing this more. But what would you say to somebody who's not part of one of these groups? What would you do to convince them? What would you say to them?
I would encourage them to get involved if you can, if you know somebody, or if you're looking for a group to get involved if you could, because it is important. Especially, we have our families and those things are important, but sometimes, I'll be honest, we use our families and our home lives as a cop-out to get out of things. Oh, I can't, I have kids, I can't, people, we do use that, and I've done that too.
Yeah.
But it's important to surround yourselves with like-minded sometimes, or even people who think differently than you, and challenge yourself on a range of different issues. And, with the poker group, we're out and we're talking about sports, or we're talking about our jobs, and sometimes it's even just venting, getting out things that you can't say in different environments. And it's kind of an environment where you can say how you feel and you're not going to be judged.
Yeah.
And that also goes for our men's group on Tuesday nights. You can be pretty honest and say, I'm struggling with this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a difficult time with this scenario. What do you guys think? You get feedback from that. So I think it's very important for men and women, for women to have those groups as well, where you can just be surrounded by other people who, have similar faith or similar beliefs as you.
Yeah, agreed. Now, in terms of just this fellowship, has there been anyone in your life that has been instrumental, such as like a mentor to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say yes. Since I was really in 6th or 7th grade, as far as the mentoring question goes, there's actually a gentleman from the church named Larry Heck, and he's on the Board of Elders. He kind of stepped in and, he was that kind of mentor for me. We did some Bible studies and different experiences together. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would say him, and he's still, involved in my life. He's a great guy who helps out. I know with other people at the church, other young men who need a little bit of guidance, need a little push one way or the other. And I actually still see him every once in a while. We go out, play tennis or do whatever. We went last year when it was really cold in the winter. He came out, we played ice hockey on the pond. Cool. So, that's one of those older gentlemen who's just a good guy and has a impact on your life, that you can't get from, somebody younger than you really, everybody needs somebody kind of an elder to be looking over you.
Yeah. I've gotten feedback, and even in my personal life, that people struggle to identify a good mentor or what is a mentor. So what was it that Larry, right? You said, what was it that Larry did for you that you felt that is mentorship to you? And not just because of the length of your relationship, because that just makes sense, right? But like, how did you know that this is the guy that's a good mentor, that could be a good person for you?
It's a good question. I don't know if there's a aha moment, but he reached out, never pushy. It was on my time. If I needed something, it was never like, if I didn't get back or something, he would, axe the relationship. It was never like that. And even to this day, like this winter, the one time I think it snowed, Bria got stuck on the road and she couldn't get to our house in West Milford, and he's in Butler. And I just called him. I was like, can you host Bria and Otto for a little bit? I mean, she's not going to get up this road until I can come pick them up. And it was like, I didn't even have to ask. She could have just showed up. So yeah, that's, I guess, when you can show up anytime, any moment, you have somebody who's kind of that guardian angel that you need.
Do you feel like what he's done to you, you have started to emanate to others?
I would like to at some point be able to do that. I think that would be awesome. I help out at the church a little bit on Wednesday nights with those kids, and then during the fall I coach soccer at Hawthorne Christian. So I'd like those kids, those younger men, to be able to feel comfortable, be able to open up if they feel like it, and that it's a place where you can say how you feel, and you can come to me in those situations. I definitely would like that. I also went to Northern Frontier growing up as like an all boys summer camp, one of those stay away camps, and you had counselors and different people who were just, when you're a young kid just trying to figure it out, you need people like that. And I can't remember specific names, but those kinds of experiences did help, just growing up and finding independence in those situations. But yeah, I would like to, be able to mentor and help kids who are struggling or going through different challenges.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to ask you a little bit of a tough question so you can take a moment to think about it. But looking back at everything you've said so far, based on your career, your faith, your own personal journey as a man, what story could you share with our listeners that made you who you are now? is there any particular moment you can think of? And if, it's too, intense, then you don't have to share, but, is there a moment, and, if you could share it with us?
All right. I can think of one that I think might answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if this is like that, there's other moments along the way. But I do remember I was a freshman in high school, and I guess my brother was a junior, or I was a sophomore. He was a senior. But we were at a basketball game at our high school, and I was just kind of sitting in the bleachers watching. I think it was the girls' team. And somebody ran into me and was like, your brother got in an accident. Kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran out, and I just remember him being there, kind of bloodied, flipped his car over. Very, very scary, kind of traumatic thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
But, I thankfully was there, and he thankfully was okay. I just remember, my parents coming, and, there was no like, what's your problem? Why'd you do this? Why would you do something so stupid to him, or something along those lines? I just remember embracing him and feeling like that loyalty that, and I want to be that way for my family, that, when things go wrong or somebody makes a mistake, intentional or not, I want to be there and not say, why would you do this? But say, I love you. I'm here for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that really gets to the heart of your question, but that's kind of the moment that I do remember, the moment of, where you're going through something really difficult, but you come together.
Yeah. No, I think I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm sure other people will too, because I wish I could be like that. Some people react to that moment of, if you crash or do something, like get caught with drugs or doing something like that. And then obviously as parents, our reactions like, how could you do this? And I wish and I hope in the future that I can, like how you're saying, it's like embrace them and be like, it's okay. Let's, I love you. Let's talk about this. I hope you're okay, especially when it's something like that. So I totally get that. And that would definitely define somebody, especially having that impression for you in the future and for your own children and how you want to act. So thank you for sharing something like that. I appreciate it. So, I want to transition again and talk a little bit about, obviously you have your own before well, it's not really podcasting, but you're a radio DJ, right? So I guess that's what it's called, right? Or
what's that?
When you were at the university.
At Nyack. It wasn't podcasting. I don't think that was even a thing.
Yeah, it
was like 2011. So it was a sports radio show once a week. Yeah.
Okay. So listeners, there is something that's coming soon with him. That's why I'm asking this question. I'm leading up to something, but teasing everybody. So basically, when you did this radio show, did you would you watch like the games and then give feedback, or was it college games, or was it both, mix of professional and college?
Yeah. So I was the assistant. I was the co-host with my good friend Ethan, who I mentioned had passed away a few years ago. And he let me jump in and be that sidekick, which was really fun. And we were mainly focused on the professional games. He's a big San Francisco fan. I was New York, New Jersey sports fan. Mm-hmm. So, we focused on those, kind of the more professional stuff. But since he was actually our soccer manager, so he knew a bunch of the guys on the soccer team that I played with, and we had good friendships there. So sometimes guys would actually call in because it was a radio show, which was really funny. I remember actually my brother called in. We talked. I remember one of my friends called in and we talked about different sports topics. So it was really fun, which is what I do like about radio, because the call-in aspect of it. But mostly the professional game, and then we would even talk about maybe the on-campus, what was going on at Nyack sports-wise at the time, but it was in the spring, so soccer was not happening. It was probably more of a baseball, and different those spring sports that may have gotten brought up. But yeah, we just, we didn't even have to have a microphone. If me and him were having a conversation, we were in the sports show, because that's how we talked. Yeah. That was our language.
That's cool. So when he first approached you on this, like, were you excited or nervous or like?
Yeah, a mix of both. Definitely excited, but like very nervous, even though there's, probably not too many people listening.
Okay,
but it's still radio. It was actually, if you were driving through Nyack, it would be on the dial, so you could hear it on accident probably because you wouldn't know. But yeah, well, there was, because it's live radio too. It's not like you can edit. But I was more excited than anything. I thought it would be really fun, and it was.
Did you get to press buttons where it make like sound effects?
We never got that savvy in the tech booth. It would have been awesome if we could. But yeah, stay away from that.
Okay. All right. Well, the reason why, listeners, I'm bringing this up is that Justin has upgraded from, well, I don't know if it's an upgrade actually, because you can't do the noises and stuff. Well, you could if handy. But anyway, so Justin actually has his own podcast, and I wanted him to talk a little bit about it. So Justin, why don't you do kind of give a background on what started the idea for your podcast? And I know you have a co-host on there, and talk a little bit about that and just in general about the podcast and what it is.
Yeah. So this sports podcast, my friend and I kind of texted back and forth over the winter. And he actually, I remember driving in the car, and he was like, "You and Ryan should do a sports podcast." About 10 minutes later, he texted, "Why don't you and I do a sports podcast?" So it's kind of written in the stars in a sense. And when we were in college together, he was my roommate for junior and senior year. And, we basically, that's what we did. We would just talk sports, and our other roommates would look at us like we were idiots. They didn't understand the language. Sure. So it was basically like, we were already doing it, just not officially. So we started up, it's called the Wicked Smaht Sports Podcast, because he's from Boston, and we do the little accent. Do the little accents there. So he's a Bostonian. My friend Ryan, who hosts it with me, we're both co-hosts, and he's a big Boston fan. I'm a big New York, New Jersey sports fan, other than my baseball team, which is the lowly Tigers from Detroit. So we basically, we talk a lot of football in football season, even outside of it, for the draft purposes and free agency and things like that. But we talk a lot of NBA playoffs when our NHL teams are relevant, which the Devils are at the moment. Probably won't be by the time this is published. But we talk about that, and we'll get into baseball as that season gets going. But it's basically just a conversation we have. It's as if we're back in college just talking. We try to be pretty smooth, not crazy structured, but with a little bit of structure, making sure we hit the topics we want to talk about. So I think we've done about 10 episodes of that. We try to go every other week, really depending on our schedules and what's going on in the world of sports, try to time it that way so we could give previews or synopsis of the most recent happenings around the world of sports. So that is our show.
So if people wanted to listen to you, what would they expect? Give us a little teaser or like of how an episode goes.
You get some pretty epic rants, especially when one of our teams disappoints. This past year, I had one of those long rants about the Brooklyn Nets after they traded away all our best players. Ryan had a rant about the Patriots. He said Bill Belichick is a 1970s Gore who just wants to run footballs up the middle. So it's pretty funny if you're interested in New York or New Jersey and Boston sports teams at any level. Or we also talk about other teams and what's going on. Whoever's relevant in the playoffs. We focus in on those players. We do some sports PTSD where we talk about players who haunt us. So we talk about X player gave me sports PTSD because they hit a buzzer beater against us or scored a game-winning goal in hockey. So we try to make it funny. We haven't had too many guests. I guess when you have a co-host, you don't need it as much because you already have somebody else there. But we will try to add people to the show as it happens. But that's pretty much it. We try to do about an hour every 2 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say, I'm a sports fan. I like sports. I like my Steelers, and basically that's the only sport I do. I watch when things are in the finals or championships, just like most people that like football. But I would think that New Jersey, New York sports and Boston sports are very conflicting. I feel like there's a tension point there? How do you guys make that work?
That's kind of the beauty of it, because there's two separate sides to the coin, I think.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool. Although in recent years, last year the Celtics played the Nets in the playoffs and they swept us. It's a good thing we weren't doing the show then, so that would have been not too good for me. But yeah, there's definitely, it's not like Philly, New York, where it's like a bloodbath, but there's not too much love between and the good thing is I'm not a Yankees fan, because Yankees Red Sox is one of the biggest rivalries in history. So thankfully with the baseball, we don't conflict too much. Although one of our earliest memories as friends was in college going to Applebee's. The Red Sox and the Tigers were playing in the American League Championship Series, and the Red Sox won, and we're watching together. So it was pretty tense. So it was pretty quiet. And thankfully we became friends after the Giants beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl the second time.
Okay.
Because I don't know if we ever would have made it through both of those Super Bowls, but it's fun. Yeah. We have a lot of fun, and we keep it pretty civil, but we also, we have to lay into our teams when they disappoint us.
You got to do what you got to do. All right. Well, thank you for sharing about your podcast, and I hope my listeners do to partake in that. I have listened to I think the first or two episodes, but I'm not really like a sports radio guy anyway. My brother is, but I'm not. So I'm sure, I think he does listen to it. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, so with the final act here, I always ask my guests two questions, and I'm going to start with the first one, which is, Justin, tell me the best and worst moments of your life or your career.
Okay. The best moment of my life.
Be careful.
The best moments. Yeah, I know. I would give two moments if I can.
Sure.
So, wedding day was a really amazing day, surrounded by friends. Unfortunately, we didn't know you guys yet.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
But if we ever renew our vows, you'll be on the list.
Okay, good.
Of course. And obviously the day Otto, my son, was born. Those were two of the proudest moments of my life. As far as the worst moment, that's a kind of a tough question, but I would, if I can, the saddest moment, if that's okay, I guess would be the day that my grandpa on my dad's side passed away. He was always there. He was kind of my baseball coach. He helped me learn how to play golf. Not that I'm very good, but he's always like, oh, Justin's got a natural swing. He was always very high on me playing sports, and he loved coaching me from afar, or he would show up to my little league games. So when he passed away in, I'm going to butcher the year, but I think it was 2008, in February of 2008, that was a very sad day. It wasn't sudden or anything like that, but I remember being surrounded by everybody in our family as he was going. So that was a really difficult loss. But yeah, I would say those were the 2 or 3 moments.
Okay. Well, he sounds like a great guy. I wish I would have gotten to know him. But thank you for sharing those moments. And I'm sure Bria's going to hear this podcast, which I think is why you said the other two. So that's fair.
Yeah. Well, Otto's actually, his middle name is Louis, which is after my grandpa.
Okay.
So
that's cool. All right. So that's a third when naming him.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So the last question I usually ask is, what are the 5 essential things you think you need to succeed in your life or your career?
Okay. I'll try to hit 5.
Okay.
I would say the first thing, this came up because of our conversations, just surrounding yourself by people who lift you up, who bring you to the next level, not people who try to drag you down. I think that would be one. I would say the second one I can think of is just the willingness to work harder, but also work smarter. One of the issues I had, in sports was I would run around like a maniac, but I wouldn't necessarily work smart. Mm-hmm. So I'd outwork myself and exhaust myself. But once I got to a certain level, I started to realize, and people started telling me, look, you're working hard and you're gotten so much better, but try to work smarter. Mm-hmm. Don't overwork. Don't exhaust yourself to the point where you lose sight of what you're actually trying to achieve. So I guess that would be another one. And I'm probably only going to come up with 3, to be honest. But
okay.
I guess the third one is for me at least, is staying faithful. Because whenever I did waver and fall away from God, and it's, it never says in the Bible it's going to be easy, but and the saying, God won't give you something you can't handle, isn't even the right saying. It's He won't give you something that He can't get you through. So I guess those three would be the 3 of the 5.
That's okay. And we'll get you back on and you can finish the last 2. Well, I appreciate you, talking to us today, and appreciate you sharing your stories and your journey and sharing 3 epic career advice for people. But I want to pass it over to you if you want to say any additional things to our listeners.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of I almost said my podcast name, the Dr. Nobody podcast, and I hope I helped somebody today in some way.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much, Justin. Thank you very much for your time again and sharing your story with us. Everyone, I hope you gained plenty of insights today. This is the beginning of becoming a someone, but specifically the someone you always wanted to be. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please do give me a like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also visit the website, thedrnobodypodcast.com, to learn more about my guest and listen to the episode again, share this episode, and much more. Thanks for listening to Season 2 of the Dr. Nobody Podcast, where we continue to turn nobodies to somebodies. Talk to you all very soon.